Hi, everyone. This is Karen Brown from the Awakened Midlife and Go Green Inside. And I'm very excited to have one of my mentors, Leslie Zehr, with me today. And we're going to be talking about the importance of the lunar cycles and how we as women can align with and work with the cycles to really benefit our lives. So, hi, Leslie.
Hi, Karen.
I'm laughing because I'm just thinking about the last 15 minutes we spent trying to figure out our audio. And so if it sounds a little odd, it's because we both don't have our headsets because we couldn't get it to work. But you know what just occurred to me? This is like we're in the womb. So if it sounds a little tunnely, it's because we're in the womb. How about that?
Together, twins.
Exactly. Which is perfect for this conversation.
Uh-huh.
So, Leslie, if I was going to describe you, and just for the viewers, I guess I would categorize the work that you do as being about women's mysteries and alchemy and the sacred arts. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and the work that you're involved with right now?
I think my main focus is for women to find the sacredness within themselves. So there are many different ways to do that. And really what I teach are the sacred arts, the lost sacred arts, which are really part of our heritage, I think, from way back. And I do that in many ways. I think it's really, and really it parallels my own journey. I think that we teach what we learn. So this has been my journey to reconnect to the feminine and to the sacred within myself. And the things that I teach are the different ways that I've learned to do that.
Great. Yes. And one of those ways is through working with the lunar cycle. And it occurred to me, and this is why I wanted to have this chat with you, is that when I work with women, I've been doing this now, aligning to the lunar cycles for maybe 2 or 3 years. And I was starting to take it for granted. And then people were asking me about it, my coaching clients, and I realized that this isn't the norm anymore.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought it would be great to have you come on and really explain a little bit about what it's all about, what it means, and how we can work with it. So maybe we'll just start with, what do we need to know? Just a really basic kind of 101 about the lunar cycle and what it's really all about if we were to work with it.
Well, I think first of all, that's a big part of aligning ourselves back to nature, and the lunar cycle is very much aligned with the woman's cycle. It's a 28-day cycle. And this is how women used to know when they were going to menstruate, because everyone did at the same time. Because when we didn't have lighting outside, and the only real light at night was from the moon, then this is what worked on our hormones. So everyone was aligned. That's why you had the red tents, but the red tents were because everybody was bleeding at the same time. It was this cycle, and we were aligned with the moon. More and more, people are not aligned with nature at all. And the solar calendar, because that's the one that we're using. People still, even within the solar calendar, don't seem to know the equinoxes and the solstices. And so we would have gatherings for those, and everybody, oh, really? Is that what this is? We have Mother's Day in Egypt is on the 21st of March, which is aligned with the equinox. And I find that really interesting. So people know that date, but they know it because it's Mother's Day. So never mind, there's got to be a way to get us back into that rhythm. To me, the moon is the easiest way, because even when you're in a city, like I'm in Cairo, I can still see the moon. Maybe I can't see the stars and the constellations, but I can see the moon. So I try to look at the moon every day. And that's just, I think, a very simple way to realign yourself to nature. So it's a very basic way. And I think it's a really good place to start because it is easy to see. And people take notice maybe when there's a full moon, but take notice, when it's a half moon, when it's a dark moon. I mean, to me, that's a very potent, as you know, that's a very potent part of the cycle. But either way, like, just, take note, just look up and notice what's going on around you, because this is something that we really have forgotten about. And it's an easy way, because the moon is there and it is illuminated and we can see it. In Egypt, we actually we have a lunar calendar, though our months are we're still on the lunar calendar. So I find that, yeah, it's interesting to live. We have both. I mean, obviously we have to be on the solar one as well, because commerce is very much aligned to a solar calendar. But that's the point. In ancient times, people used all different kinds of calendars, and they used them for different things. But the moon really is very rhythmic, and it's very much related to the emotions. It's related to water. It's when the tides go in and out. So I think that that's just an easy way in to reconnect yourself with nature. And as I said, it's something that you can do even if you're living in a city.
Right. Yeah. And so the dark moon, which I guess is the 3 days, like the day before, the day after, and the new moon is in the middle.
Yeah.
This seems to be, as you said just now, a particularly potent time for women. Can you talk a little bit about why that is? And
Well, first of all, it's the point where the moon is in its dark or unseen phase. So that's important, because the feminine is very much the unseen. So when we're talking about things that are, I don't want to keep using the word dark, but unseen or mysterious, we're very much talking about the feminine. This is a very potent time. If you think of a seed, you plant it in the ground. That's the unseen part of the whole process. And there's endless videos of watching a seed germinate and then, push through the ground. So much is going on under the ground. That's a huge part of this growth cycle. So for us, on a more spiritual level, that's the period of time where we're planting the seeds. When we get to the full moon, that's when everything is illuminated. That's when we begin to see things. So that's not necessary, and it's also that's the transition between the waking phase and the waning phase. So that's another transition, but in a whole different way. Like, that's when everything has come out in the open, I guess. But in the dark phase is when everything is still more internal. And so I think that's why it's potent. It's unseen. That's another aspect of the feminine, is this potential. The feminine is all about potential. So that's what we have in that dark phase. We have infinite potential. What happens by the time you get to the full moon is it's seen. Now the plant is out of the ground. Now we can see it. Now we know what we have here. We know what kind of plant. We know how strong it is, different aspects of it. But it's in that unseen phase that you really have the potential for everything. So they're both important, but they're important in different ways. And I think we work with them in different ways. So to me, that's what I'm drawn to, I guess, is that that darker phase where there is this potential for everything, and starting yourself. How am I going to do this particular cycle? And I think that's important too, that it is this 28-day cycle. So we constantly have a chance. We keep coming back to this same place. The next month we can plant different seeds, and then we can go through this cycle again.
Right. So how, if we were to explain to someone or give them some tips about how they can actually use this time, what would you say?
I think, first of all, there's several different things here. First of all, the cycle of the moon itself, this 28 days, this dark phase, the full moon, I think you can see it. When you go outside, you can see it. So that's very simple in the sense that when you see that you're in the dark moon phase, when the moon has disappeared, think about that. What seeds would I like to plant in this next cycle? And I would do different kinds of activities like journaling. Maybe you set intentions for this particular cycle. Again, whatever your own practice is, but just to realize, oh, I'm in a new cycle. Okay, how do I want in the next 28 days? What could I be working on? What could I be thinking about? Then when you get to the full moon, stop for a moment and think, okay, if you're journaling, and I think journaling is a really excellent thing to do, go back and look at what you wrote on the dark moon and see where you are. I mean, hopefully you've done that through your process, but we get distracted, so never mind. So on the full moon, when you look up and you see that bright moon, then go back and say, okay, yeah, this is the moment. Let me go back and see what I wrote. So now at the full moon, the cycle that we're moving into after the full moon is that letting go cycle. So what did I do? What did I do in these 2 weeks? Reassess that, think about it. And then what am I going to do in the next 2 weeks? What do I need to let go of? What no longer serves me? What did I accomplish and what didn't I accomplish? And again, that's one of those words that I don't really like to use, because it's not really about goal setting. It's more about progress and just seeing where we are in this cycle. And then as the moon begins to diminish again, maybe start to think about things, the new seeds that you want to plant. If you know anything about astrology, and even if you don't, you can find it online, I would look at where the moon is. Because on the dark moon, that's the new moon, that's when the sun and the moon are conjuncted. So they're going to be in the same sign. So for example, we just last night, we're in the sign of Cancer. Sun is in Cancer right now. So the moon on the full moon is opposite the sun. So it's going to be in the opposing sign. So the sun is in Cancer, the moon is in Capricorn. So last night we had the Capricorn full moon. So again, what is that? If you know something about astrology, and even if you don't, I would just play with it. To me, that's how you learn the most. And that's why I have these dark moon gatherings. And I always talk about the astrology. I'm not trying to teach you astrology. I'm trying to get people familiar with the language, because to me, these are all of the things that we should have learned at our grandmother's knee. If everybody was just talking about this, if I was saying, oh yeah, we're the moon's in Capricorn tonight, then you would know that. We would all know that. So I think that's how we learn these things, is more by osmosis. So just be playful with it. Okay, it was a Capricorn. Even if you don't know a lot about Capricorn, what do you know? And maybe use that kind of energy or read about it. Then you'll know more. So I think that if you know the astrology, bring that into it. If you don't, you can still align yourself just because you can actually see the moon.
And you mentioned your gathering, and I wanted to mention that to people because this is something that they can also participate in and get more insight into the teachings around how to work with the dark moon. So can you talk a little bit about what you do in those gatherings?
Well, there are certain things that I always do, and then I really leave it up to my intuition before the day before, well, whenever. Last month, it came in maybe a week early. It was like, no, this is what we're going to talk about next time. And as soon as I got to the point where it was time to do the gathering, then I understood why that had come in. But I always talk about the astrology, as I said, very basically, like I just mentioned, because I want people just to become familiar with the words. And if there's any big trends that are going on, like we had this Uranus moving into Taurus, that's been a big thing in the last couple of months. So we talked about that a little bit. Again, I'm planting seeds. It is the dark moon. So you're planting your own seeds, but I'm planting seeds that we'll just see if they grow. Maybe they don't, or maybe they do later on. So I always talk about the astrology. We always do a guided visualization because I think that's important. Now it's not a very big group, so we have the opportunity to interact with each other. We usually do that at the end. I always pull a card. I love to pull cards. And so I do that in the morning. I do that when I'm preparing for that evening. I pull a card so that I can talk about it. And then I suggest to women during the event, I suggest to women different things that they can then go and journal about afterwards. So the event is only an hour, but I recommend that people leave another half an hour, maybe afterward, to do their own journaling or pull their own cards. Just take notes of things that came up. Maybe something came up during the guided visualization, just to do that. And I think for me, my life is a spiritual practice. It's not something that I do over there. And so there've got to be these moments where you just collect things and then process them somewhere further along the line and just sort of watch what this unfolding is. So that's really what that's about. And usually at some point I will talk a little bit about the phase that we're going into, like where the full moon will be, or maybe go back to where it was the month before if that seems significant. But that's kind of a basic overview of what we do.
Yeah, and I love it. I've been doing it for the last several months, and I really, really enjoy it. It's like a special time to kind of just come inward, really.
Yeah. And I want it to be a time where I can nurture other people, that I can hold space for other people, because a lot of us are practitioners of some sort, and we spend our time holding space for our clients or our friends or our children or whatever it is. And I think there needs to be a point where we're nurtured. So that was really my intention, was that's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to make it that people didn't participate, at least in the beginning, that you would sit there with your headset on and you would just listen, and you would be taken through the guided visualization. You would listen to the astrology, whatever, and just to be nurtured and nourished, because I think that we need that. I think we need to, some things are too interactive, where we feel the need to participate, and there needs to come a point where we just sit for ourselves and take something in. And then I do leave time at the end if things come up, but I've tried to make that very, a kind of a very different energy, or a very different period of the whole process, so that if all you want to do is be nurtured, then you can just leave at the end. If you don't want to talk about it, you want to just sit with it, you want to go and journal, you can just leave, and you don't have to have a discussion about it.
Right. And what's the best way for women to connect with your work or to join the Lunation Gathering?
I think you're going to send people the link.
Yes.
But it's also on my website. My main website is www.universaldancer.com, no spaces. And I'm also on Facebook. Leslie Zehr is my profile. I'm on Instagram as The Universal Dancer, that has spaces between each one of those words. And I think probably Facebook. My email, there's a link on my website. But if women are interested in the gathering, I think going to my website, there is a link on the home page to have more information about that. And it's growing from within, and I think that's the way I want it to grow. There are lots of groups online, but we all have to find the place that we feel comfortable, that's helping us to grow, or our tribe, or however you want to look at it. But I'm excited about the way it's growing, and I hope that some of your ladies will join us.
Terrific. Yeah, that's great. And I encourage everybody to go to Leslie's website, because you have a vast number of resources that, including this book, which I pulled out from my shelf. And we're going to talk about this. Not today, because we don't have time, but we're going to cover this hopefully in a future interview as part of my Awakened Midlife interview series. So that'll be coming up in the next little while.
Yeah, that will be great. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Leslie. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to speaking with you again and also joining you in the next Lunation gathering, which is coming up, I guess, in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to women who are interested in connecting through the dark moon, and this is a subject I love. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
Okay, thanks again. Bye, everyone.